I was at my desk on a typical Tuesday morning, immersed in the review of investment portfolios, when an unfamiliar number flashed on my phone. Normally, I would have ignored it and let it go to voicemail. Spam calls are a constant these days. But a strange impulse, perhaps intuition or just pure chance, compelled me to answer. Little did I know, this call would shatter the meticulously crafted life I had built for myself. "Hello?" I answered, my eyes still fixed on the figures on my computer screen. The office around me was hushed, save for the low hum of the air conditioning and the faint tapping of keyboards in the distance. "Harper? It's your mother," a hesitant voice on the other end said, a voice I recognized, a voice that tightened a knot in my stomach. 12 years. It had been 12 years since I had heard that voice, 12 years since I had spoken to any of them. My mother, my father, or my sister, Lily. 12 years I had spent constructing my own life, my own success, far removed from their poisonous favoritism. I glanced at my closed office door, a wave of relief washing over me. "What do you want?" My tone was sharper than intended, but perhaps deep down that was precisely how I wanted it to sound. My free hand clenched into a fist on the desk. There was a pause. A deep intake of breath. "Your father is very ill, Harper," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "The doctors? They say he doesn't have much time left. We want you to come home, to make peace, to say goodbye." I sat there, frozen, staring blankly at the modern art piece on my office wall, the one I'd bought myself last year, simply because I could afford it. The silence between us stretched taut, like a rubber band about to snap. Outside my window, life continued its normal rhythm. People walking, cars passing, the world spinning on its axis. But inside my office, time seemed to stop. "I'll think about it," I finally responded, hanging up before she could utter another word, before she could attempt to guilt me, manipulate me, or whatever else she might have planned. For a long time, I remained motionless, my coffee growing cold beside me. Memories I had fought so hard to suppress surged back, a relentless flood breaking through the dam I had built around them. I remembered everything that had led to this moment, every slight, every betrayal, every instance of their choosing Lily over me. I was always the responsible one, the independent one, forced to be, from the moment Lily was born, just 2 years after me. It was immediately apparent who their favorite was. Every birthday, every Christmas, every ordinary day, the pattern repeated itself. Lily received the new toys, the prettier dresses, the larger portion of dessert. I received the hand-me-downs, the practical gifts, the lectures about being a good example for my younger sister. When Lily coveted my new colored pencils in 3rd grade, Mom made me share. "You know how sensitive your sister is?" she'd say, while Lily smirked behind her back. When Lily destroyed my favorite book, throwing it into the swimming pool during a tantrum, Dad simply shrugged and said, "Accidents happen," then bought her an ice cream to console her. That book had been a gift from my favorite teacher, and I'd spent countless hours reading it beneath the covers with a flashlight. No one replaced it. When Lily achieved good grades, they threw parties. "Look how smart our little girl is." They'd boast, while I sat quietly, my own consistent good grades simply expected. When I excelled academically, they merely nodded and said, "That's what we expect from you, Harper. You're older. You should be setting the example." I learned early on that if I wanted something, I had to acquire it myself. At 16, I started working at Joe's Cafe after school. The manager, Sarah, became more of a maternal figure to me than my own mother ever had been. She taught me about responsibility, about saving money, about advocating for myself. I saved every penny, dreaming of the day I could escape and build my own life. The phone incident truly opened my eyes to the depth of their favoritism. I had saved diligently for months to buy a basic smartphone. Nothing extravagant, just a $100 model that I'd earned one tip at a time. The day I brought it home, Lily threw a tantrum. "But I want one too," she wailed, reaching for my phone with greedy hands. "Harper, give it to me. You're so selfish." "No," I said firmly, holding it out of reach. "I bought this with my own money. You can save up for one too. You can get a job like I did." "Mom!" Lily screamed, her face turning crimson. "Dad! Harper's being mean!" They rushed in, as they always did when Lily summoned them, Mom from the kitchen, Dad from his study, both looking deeply concerned for their precious darling's distress. "Harper," my father said sternly, his face etched with the familiar expression of disappointment that I knew so well. "Why are you being selfish? Your sister just wants to see your phone." "Because it's mine," I replied, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and hurt. "I worked for it. I earned every single dollar." "You're supposed to love your sister," my mother chimed in, her disappointment palpable. "How can you be so cruel? We raised you better than this." I looked at them, truly looked at them, and something shifted within me. This wasn't normal. This wasn't fair. This wasn't love. It was something else entirely, and I was done pretending it was okay. "I do love her," I said quietly, a steely resolve in my voice. "But that doesn't mean I have to give her everything I own." I retreated to my room, locking the door, ignoring their calls and Lily's theatrical sobs, which I knew would soon morph into demands for something else. That night, I began researching colleges in other states, dreaming of escape. I opened a new document on my computer and typed "college applications" at the top. I remember the day the acceptance letters. The memory of receiving my college acceptance letter remains vivid, as if it happened only yesterday. I was 18, fresh out of high school, my hands trembling as I tore open the envelope from the investment management program in Arizona. Sarah, my mentor from Joe's Cafe, watched me anxiously from behind the counter. She knew how much this meant to me. "I got in," I whispered, then louder with a surge of joy. "I got in!" Sarah embraced me tightly. "I never doubted you for a second, kiddo." The letter offered a partial scholarship, exceeding my expectations. I would need approximately $30,000 to cover the remaining expenses. This shouldn't have been a problem. I knew about the money Grandpa had left before he passed away. He'd explicitly stated it was for both his granddaughter's education. I had been present when he instructed Mom and Dad, make sure both girls get their schooling. That's what this money is for. Driving home that day, I was filled with hope. Perhaps this achievement would finally shift their perspective. Perhaps they would be proud of me. Perhaps they would finally truly see me. I found them in the living room. Lily sprawled on the couch, engrossed in her phone, while Mom and Dad watched television. "I got accepted," I announced, holding up the letter. "The investment management program in Arizona. They're even giving me a partial scholarship." Mom muted the television. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Lily didn't even glance up from her phone. "That's nice, honey," Mom said, but the tone of her voice sent a chill down my spine. "But Arizona is so far away." "The program is exactly what I want to do," I explained. "And with Grandpa's money for the remaining tuition—" "About that," Dad interrupted, clearing his throat. "We don't have that money anymore." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "What do you mean? Grandpa left that money specifically for our education. Both of us." "Well," Mom said, smoothing her skirt, "we had to make some choices. Investment opportunities came up, and what about Lily's college fund?" I asked, although I already knew the answer. I could see it in their faces. Dad actually laughed. "Don't worry about your sister's education. We've got that covered." "So you spent my portion?" My voice rose in disbelief. "You spent the money Grandpa left for my education?" "Don't be dramatic," Mom said dismissively. "You're good at figuring things out. You'll find a way." I looked at them, really looked at them. At Mom's expensive jewelry, at Dad's new golf clubs in the corner, at Lily's designer clothes and latest iPhone. "You're telling me," I said slowly, "that you spent the money my grandfather left for my education on stuff? On yourselves?" "Watch your tone," Dad warned. "No!" I shouted. "I won't watch my tone. This is wrong. This is so wrong. Grandpa wanted that money to go to both of us. Get out," Mom snapped. "Just get out until you can speak to us with respect." I stormed out, slamming the door behind me. I drove to the cafe, tears blurring my vision, and worked my shift in a daze. The next day was my regular morning shift at the cafe. I went through the motions, making coffee, serving breakfast, trying to process what to do next. Sarah sensed something was amiss but didn't press, which is why I appreciated her so much. When I returned home that afternoon, my key wouldn't turn in the lock. I tried repeatedly, but it wouldn't budge. That's when I noticed my suitcases, the old ones from the basement, sitting by the front door. They were crammed with my belongings, some haphazardly folded, others just shoved inside. "Mom?" I called out, knocking. "Dad?" "You're not welcome here anymore," Mom's voice came from behind the closed door. "We won't have that kind of disrespect in this house." I was stunned. "Are you serious? You're kicking me out because I was upset that you stole my college money?" "Don't be so dramatic," she replied. "You're 18 now, an adult. Time to figure things out on your own." I stood there staring at those suitcases, fighting back tears. Cars passed by on our street, neighbors who had known me my entire life driving past as if nothing was wrong, as if my parents hadn't just thrown me out. "What about Lily?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Would you ever do this to her?" There was no answer, just silence. With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and called my Aunt Rachel, Mom's sister. She answered on the second ring. "Harper? What's wrong? You sound upset." I poured out the whole story, my words tumbling out between sobs. The college acceptance, Grandpa's money, being locked out. "Stay right there," she said firmly. "Your Uncle Mike and I are coming to get you." 45 minutes later, their car pulled up. Uncle Mike loaded my suitcases into the trunk while Aunt Rachel held me close. "I'm so sorry, sweetie," she whispered. "This isn't right." That night, as I sat in their guest room, Aunt Rachel and Uncle Mike came in with a check. "We want to help with your college tuition," Aunt Rachel said. "It's not everything, but it's what we can do." "I'll pay you back, I promise," I said through tears. "Every penny." "We know you will," Uncle Mike said, "because unlike some people we know exactly who you are and what you're capable of." I looked at the check, $30,000. Enough to cover what the scholarship didn't. Enough to change my life. The next 12 years unfolded like a dream I built with my own 2 hands. College was challenging, but exhilarating. I immersed myself in my studies, working part-time at the university's financial aid office to cover living expenses. Every semester, I made the dean's list. Every summer, I secured prestigious internships. And every month, I diligently set aside money to repay Aunt Rachel and Uncle Mike, a debt of gratitude I carried close to my heart. My success was fueled by a potent mixture of hard work, determination, and the unwavering belief in myself that Sarah and my aunt and uncle had instilled in me. Throughout those 4 transformative college years, my phone remained silent. No calls from my parents or Lily. Occasionally, I'd find myself wondering about their lives, but the memory of those suitcases by the doorstep would quickly resurface, refocusing my attention on building my future. 2 months before graduation, I received my first job offer, a junior position at Goldman Investment Partners. The starting salary was beyond anything I had ever imagined. The day I signed the contract, I called Aunt Rachel. "I did it," I told her, my voice trembling with excitement. "They want me to start right after graduation." "Of course they do," she replied, her voice filled with pride. "You're exceptional, Harper. You always have been." I stayed in the same city after graduation, starting out in a tiny studio apartment that barely accommodated my bed and a desk. But I didn't mind. It was mine. Every morning, I woke up at 5 a.m., hit the gym, and was at my desk by 7:30. Every evening, I stayed late, absorbing everything I could from my colleagues. My boss, Catherine, took me under her wing. "You've got something special," she told me one night as we worked late on a major client presentation. "You're hungry, but not desperate, driven, but not reckless. We need more people like you." 3 years later, I was promoted to senior analyst. 2 years after that, investment manager. My salary doubled, then tripled. I moved from my studio apartment to a luxurious high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows and a breathtaking view of the city. I bought my first Mercedes, a sleek black C-Class that brought a smile to my face every time I saw it in the parking garage. I repaid my debt to Aunt Rachel and Uncle Mike in full, although they initially resisted. "We didn't help you so you'd pay us back," Aunt Rachel protested. "I know," I told her. You helped me because you love me, but I'm paying you back because I love you too, and because I keep my promises. I traveled the world, Paris, Tokyo, Sydney, posting pictures on social media of sunsets in Santorini and snow-capped peaks in Switzerland. I never blocked my family on social media, but I never actively sought out their profiles either. Let them see my success if they chose to. I was done looking back. Until that phone call in my office, 12 years later, brought it all crashing back down. A week after my mother's call, I found myself driving down the familiar streets of my hometown. Everything appeared smaller somehow, less significant. I pulled up to my parents' house in my Mercedes, adjusting my Chanel sunglasses in the rearview mirror. The house hadn't changed much. Same blue shutters, same wooden swing on the porch. But now I noticed the peeling paint, the sagging gutters, the telltale signs of neglect. My mother opened the door before I could even knock. She had aged more than I expected, gray streaks in her hair, lines around her mouth that hadn't been there before. "Harper," she breathed, reaching for a hug I didn't reciprocate. You look so successful." "Where's Dad?" I asked, stepping past her into the house. The interior smelled the same, Mom's vanilla candles and Dad's coffee. "In the living room," she said, hurrying ahead of me. "He's having a good day today." I wasn't prepared for how my father looked. The man who had once seemed so imposing, so authoritative, now sat slumped in his recliner, thin and pale. His eyes lit up when he saw me, though, and for a fleeting moment, I glimpsed the father I remembered. "Harper," he said, his voice weaker than I recalled, but still carrying a hint of that familiar authority. "You came." "I did," I replied, sitting in the chair across from him. "You look unwell." He chuckled, but it quickly turned into a cough. "Always direct, weren't you?" "Yes. Cancer's the doctors say I've got a few months. Maybe less." Mom hovered nearby, wringing her hands. "I made your old room up for you. Everything's just like you left it." I almost laughed at that. Nothing was like I'd left it. They had made sure of that 12 years ago. "Where's Lily?" I asked, noticing my sister's absence. "Oh, she's out with friends," Mom said quickly. "She'll be back for dinner. She's so excited to see you." I doubted that, but nodded politely. We engaged in awkward small talk for a while. They asked about my job, my apartment, my car. I gave short, polite answers, observing them exchange furtive glances when they thought I wasn't looking. That evening, Lily finally arrived, dressed in designer clothes that looked brand new. She had gained weight since I'd last seen her, but her face was still pretty, still holding that air of perpetual entitlement I remembered so well. "Harper!" she squealed, as if we were best friends who had simply been apart for a weekend. "Oh my God, is that a Cartier watch? It's gorgeous!" Dinner was a strained affair. Mom had made all my favorite childhood dishes, as if food could somehow bridge the 12-year chasm of betrayal and silence. Dad ate very little, mostly pushing food around his plate. Lily chattered incessantly about her friends, her social life, her plans to launch a lifestyle blog. "Speaking of plans," Dad said suddenly, setting down his fork. "Harper, there's something important we need to discuss." I saw Mom tense up. I saw Lily's eyes darken. Something clicked in my mind. This wasn't just about saying goodbye to a dying father. This was something else entirely. "What is it?" I asked, although a part of me already dreaded the answer. Dad leaned forward, his face serious. "I need you to promise me something, a dying man's wish, if you will," he said, his voice heavy with what I assumed was supposed to be emotional weight. I waited, my hand tightening around my water glass, the anticipation thick in the air. "After I'm gone," he continued, "I need to know that Lily will be taken care of, that she'll be able to maintain her lifestyle. And you, well, you're in a position to ensure that happens." The room fell silent. I could hear the tick of the clock on the wall, the hum of the refrigerator, the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. "You want me to, what?" I asked, my voice dangerously low. "To take care of your sister," Mom interjected, rushing to elaborate, "to help her financially." "You're doing so well, Harper. You have more than enough to—" I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Let me get this straight, I said, my voice rising. You called me here after 12 years of silence to ask me to financially support my fully capable adult sister? Harper, please sit down, Mom pleaded. You're making this more dramatic than it needs to be. More dramatic? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You kicked me out of this house. You left my belongings in suitcases on the doorstep. You spent my college money that Grandpa specifically left for my education. And now you want me to support Lily? Lily spoke up, her voice whiny and petulant. It's not fair that you have so much money and won't share. You've always been selfish. I turned to look at her, really look at her. Designer dress, expensive jewelry, perfectly manicured nails, all paid for by our parents, even now, at 28 years old. What exactly have you been doing these past 12 years, Lily? I asked. While I was working 60-hour weeks, building my career, what were you doing? I've been finding myself, she replied defensively. Not all of us want to be corporate slaves. Finding yourself on Mom and Dad's dime, I retorted, shaking my head. And now that Dad's sick, you're worried about losing your meal ticket, aren't you? Don't talk to your sister that way, Mom snapped. She's sensitive. She needs to grow up, I shouted. She needs to learn how to support herself. She needs to stop depending on everyone else to fund her lifestyle. Dad's fist hit the table, though with less force than I remembered from my childhood. Enough. I'm dying, Harper. My last wish is to know that my youngest daughter will be taken care of. And what about your oldest daughter? I asked quietly. Did you ever want to take care of me? The silence that followed was deafening. I grabbed my purse from the back of my chair. I'm leaving, I announced. This was a mistake. Harper, please. Mom followed me to the door. Think about what you're doing. Think about your father's last wish. I turned to face her. I'll help pay for Dad's medical bills if he needs it. But I will not support Lily. That's my final answer. I walked out to my car, ignoring my mother's desperate pleas and my sister's dramatic sobs. As I drove away, I pulled over after a few blocks and called my aunt. They want me to support Lily, I said when she answered. Can you believe that? Oh, Harper, she sighed. I was afraid it might be something like that. Your sister hasn't worked a day in her life, and your parents, they've enabled her for so long. The next 2 days were a blur of angry calls and text messages. My mother and sister bombarded my phone with guilt trips and accusations. You're killing your father with your selfishness, Mom texted. You've always been jealous of me, Lily wrote. You're just trying to punish me. I saved every message but didn't respond. Something told me I might need them later. When Mom called again, I activated my phone's recording feature before answering. Harper, she began immediately. How can you be so cold, so selfish? Your sister needs you. I'm willing to help, Dad, I replied calmly. But Lily is an adult. She needs to support herself. You're not worth your sister's little finger, Mom shrieked. We should never have called you. I ended the call and sat in my office, staring out at the city skyline. Then I opened my laptop and navigated to my mother's social media page. There it was, a long, melodramatic post about her heartless daughter who refused to help her dying father. The comments section overflowed with relatives and family friends expressing their shock and disappointment in me. Something snapped inside me. 12 years of silence, and this was how they wanted to play it? Fine. I composed my own post, attaching screenshots of the texts and the recorded phone call. I told the whole story. The childhood favoritism, the stolen college fund, the eviction, everything. I concluded with the truth about their recent contact. Not that they wanted to reconcile, but that they wanted me to financially support my able-bodied adult sister. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Comments flooded in, people expressing their shock, not at me this time, but at my parents. Family members I hadn't spoken to in years reached out privately, many sharing their own stories of witnessing the favoritism but never speaking up. Mom attempted to defend herself in the comments, but each explanation only made her look worse. Even her closest friends couldn't justify asking one daughter to support another perfectly capable adult. 6 months later, Aunt Rachel called to inform me that Dad had passed away. Mom hadn't invited me to the funeral. One final act of petty revenge. I sent a large bouquet of flowers anyway, with a card that read simply, "Goodbye, Dad." That was 3 months ago. Through Aunt Rachel, I hear that Mom is struggling to maintain their lifestyle on what Dad left her. Lily throws tantrums about not being able to afford her usual shopping sprees and restaurant meals. Sometimes I wonder if they've learned anything at all. But then I look out at my own life, the life I built brick by brick through hard work and determination, and I know I made the right decision. I am finally free. Last week, another unknown number appeared on my caller ID. This time, I let it go straight to voicemail. It was Lily, asking if I would reconsider helping her, just until she gets on her feet. I deleted the message without a second thought. Sitting in my office now, looking around at the life I've constructed for myself, I feel a sense of peace with the decisions I've made. I regret that I never truly reconciled with Dad, but I don't regret standing my ground. Some might label me cold or unforgiving, but I learned a long time ago that establishing healthy boundaries isn't synonymous with cruelty. It's about self-preservation, about protecting your own emotional well-being. My gaze falls on the framed photo on my desk, a picture of me with Aunt Rachel and Uncle Mike, taken at my last birthday celebration. They are my true family, the ones who believed in me, supported me, loved me unconditionally. There's a saying about blood being thicker than water, but I believe love transcends mere biology. Real love, genuine love, doesn't come with conditions or price tags. It simply is. My phone buzzes, a text from Aunt Rachel, asking if I'm still coming for Sunday dinner. I smile and reply with a quick, "Yes, wouldn't miss it." Some bridges deserve to remain burned, serving as reminders of lessons learned and boundaries established. But other bridges, the ones built on genuine connection and mutual respect, grow stronger with time. I've learned to discern the difference. The experiences of the past few months have provided a sense of closure, a reaffirmation that I chose the right path. While I carry a tinge of sadness for the relationship I could have had with my father, I refuse to be burdened by guilt or the manipulative tactics of my mother and sister. Their attempts to exploit my success, to leverage my hard work for their own gain, only solidified the necessity of the distance I've maintained. It reinforced the importance of prioritizing my own well-being and surrounding myself with people who genuinely care for me, who celebrate my accomplishments without expecting anything in return. The contrast between the life I've built and the one they've chosen is stark. While they grapple with the consequences of their choices, I embrace the fruits of my labor, the independence I've fought so hard to achieve. This isn't about gloating or relishing their struggles. It's about recognizing the power of self-reliance, the profound satisfaction that comes from creating a life aligned with your own values and aspirations. As I prepare for Sunday dinner with Aunt Rachel and Uncle Mike, I anticipate the warmth and acceptance that awaits me, the unconditional love that nourishes my soul. These are the connections that truly matter, the relationships that sustain and uplift. These are the bonds that define family, not the ones dictated by blood, but the ones forged in shared experiences, mutual respect, and unwavering support. And in that realization, I find a profound and lasting sense of peace. The journey has been long and arduous, but I have emerged stronger, more resilient, and more determined than ever to live a life authentic to myself. The past may have been fraught with challenges, but the future is filled with promise, and I embrace it with open arms and a grateful heart.